right, so I'm slightly more put together than I was 5 minutes ago, and I have Gary's bio, so I'll read it to you. Gary Horton is the founder and CEO of the Urban Erie Community Development Corporation and current president of the NAACP branch in Erie. He is a passionate advocate for building vibrant communities by helping people to remove barriers to self-sufficiency. Horton is a co-founder of the Minority Community Investment Coalition, as well as the neighborhood improvement group Eastside Grassroots Coalition. He also currently serves on the Erie Neighborhood Growth Partnership Board and the Governor's Advisory Board for Environmental Justice. Since graduating from Cheyney University of Pennsylvania with a bachelor's degree in social and behavioral sciences and a minor in political science, Horton has given more than 30 years to public service. In addition to holding positions in the mayor's office, the governor's office, and the Federal Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, he also was elected to 2 terms as school board director. So, without further ado, Mr. Horton.
Good evening. Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank God who makes all things possible, and the person that you see standing before you wouldn't be standing here but for the grace of God. I thank God for the privilege of being a 70-year-old man. Hey, I got a lot of friends that make it. I done made it for 70 years. But the other part of that is still on the wall. To be a 70-year-old man still in the trenches, on the front line. It's a privilege and an honor to get up and go to work every day in a city I was born and raised to serve you. Because that is what I've been doing. That's what I've dedicated my life to. That's what my family has done. I hope to have a conversation with you around a few things, and then I'd really like to have as many questions, give and take back as possible in the time that I have. I'd like to also thank the Jefferson, and I think it's a wonderful idea. I thank ECAT. I think it's a wonderful idea that or a vision that they had. They went to Pittsburgh and got with Bill Strickland to bring a program back to Erie that will benefit Erieites. I think that was a tremendous effort on Daria Devlin's part. I congratulate her and look forward to the Jefferson and ECAT helping us on the other side of the railroad tracks kind of replicate their efforts of a vision for Buffalo Road. Not a dream for Buffalo Road area, but a vision for the Buffalo Road area. A lot of the programs that they offer here are needed in our community and are needed in our neighborhood. Enough can't be done for the poor. And so I want to thank them for the invitation and the opportunity to be here. I want to thank my staff and students who came this evening. I see a few. I'm always challenging them to express themselves, to ask questions, and to serve, not from studying service, but actually doing service. And so I thank them. I thank the residents of the Eastside Grassroots Coalition area, as well as the members and friends of the Eastside Grassroots Coalition. I'd like to, last but certainly not least, thank my family and my friends who are here this evening. Many of the things that I undertake or I'm involved with, you all are right there in the trenches, on the wall, on the front line as well. And you serve as surrogate bridges to me on many occasions when people are looking for help or service, or they have a complaint, You all know we wear many hats. And unfortunately or fortunately, the people who we serve or need our help the most can't always make an appointment to see us. And for their need that they may have at any particular time, we have to always be accessible and available to them. And I could not do what I do without you. You serve as not just helpmate, but an inspiration. You know the people that, how difficult it is to meet everybody's needs and expectations, and yet we do. In my faith, in the Old Testament, it says the people perish for a lack of vision, or without a vision, the people perish. And so, not a dream, but a vision. And so, the Eastside Grassroots Coalition was a creation in response to the Charles Bukey plan back in the 90s that the city conducted, and or the late early 2000s, and it really didn't include us. It didn't include people who look like me. It didn't include the poor people. It didn't take our voice. It didn't include our neighborhoods, and it challenged us to wait 5 years while they invested in downtown Erie and the waterfront. And those 5 years have turned into 10 years and 12 years and 15 years where they still want to prioritize all of our investment in those areas. And so we came to the conclusion that we had to stand up for our own neighborhood. And we had to, our neighborhood may have been poor at the time, the second poorest neighborhood or census tract in Erie, but the people weren't a poor spirit. The people have undergone all kinds of trauma in our neighborhood over the years, all kinds of trauma. The most recent things besides COVID, the 3-year-old that was hit and run on Buffalo Road, the 7-year-old around the corner from Burton School that was shot in the head, the 13-year-old a block and a half from my center who was murdered, my nephew, my brother's son, who was murdered outside a tavern, 3 young men recently murdered inside that tavern, Michael Outlaw's brother in our neighborhood. It just on and on with the trauma. That's why we need a vision for the neighborhood. A vision has life in it, work in it, effort in it. And so we at the Eastside Grassroots Coalition and the staff at the Urban Erie Community Development Corporation have a vision for Buffalo Road. It has grown out of our work. We have one of the most self-sufficient, self-independent working people who live in our neighborhood. People who want to help themselves. They grow food every day. We have more community gardens in our neighborhood than any other neighborhood in the city. And that we're rich with the new Americans who have recently come to our country over the last decade and a half and are contributors, major contributors to the local economy. And so there's a lot going on in our neighborhood that people who don't live on the east side have traditionally narrative, east side is not where you want to go and live. Those of us who live on the east side, we know there are employers. Their parking lots are full. They add to the economy, but they're missing in action in our neighborhood. While we might subscribe to Erie Insurance and UPMC and send our kids to Gannon, we're not downtown. And we in our neighborhood expect those institutions, sometimes unfairly, to meet our needs also. And find it hard to accept them making the waterfront in downtown the priority throughout our whole lifetime. Now, having said that, what help we do get is from them. Because in our neighborhood, you have industrialists who don't invest in our neighborhood, who don't hire people from our neighborhood, and you don't see them like you see Erie Insurance or UPMC or Organic. And so a part of our effort to make our vision come into reality is to get those businesses, some of them Fortune 500 companies, in our neighborhood to see themselves as better neighborhood residents. Well, that's not new. We get that from the East Bayfront East Side Task Force. We get that from West Bayfront. We get that from the Sisters of St. Joe's. We've tried to replicate what they've done. We've been able to fix sidewalks and plant green space and rehab houses and put up better lighting and give out home grants to people to do some low maintenance things to their homes and to gain security cameras in the area and all the things that they did that came out of the Buki plan to focus on their neighborhoods. But yet we haven't been able to obtain or earn or receive the kind of investment that downtown and other neighborhoods have received. And one of the things that came out of our Eastside Grassroots Coalition was the purchase of Joyce Savacchio Park and to work to make it a opportunity zone. And we felt a relationship to that and a challenge because for 20 years, no one else had been able to do anything with that park. The only piece of any kind of monument in our town that has the name of Erie's only woman mayor, Joyce Savacchio, on that piece of land for 20 years, undeveloped, with millions of our taxpayer dollar going into it. We obtained ownership of it, and everybody wants us to show them what we can do in 20 days, in 20 months, in 20 minutes, not 20 without any money in that. They want us to make brick without straw. They want us to walk on water. They want us to prove that it can work. They say we don't have professional assistance or technical assistance. Well, that takes money. I've applied to organizations for that. Some of them created to benefit minority businesses and have yet to receive the kind of assistance to be able to tap into engineers and architects and lawyers to make your vision becoming into reality. Thanks to an investment of $1 million by the city of ARP funds and a commitment of $1 million from the county of ARP funds, having received half of it, $1.5 million of the money that was created to assist or benefit those most disproportionately or impacted by COVID. But when you look at the $76 million that the city received, or the 53 or $54 million that the county received, there seems to be an imbalance of investment as the money was intended to meet the needs of those most disproportionately impacted by COVID. And so, yeah, people want to see results overnight. Now, $500,000 of that is being questioned by the county. The county executive, the new county exec, wants to redirect some of that money, while we have a $2 million project ready to roll that would create an aquaponic greenhouse to grow fish and vegetables, and create a culinary arts kitchen and a pest management business, and where we could self-develop. but they want us to act. Show us progress, but they want to hold up the money. They question why the government money is in it. Well, we pay taxes too. The people in my neighborhood pay taxes too. The people who look like me pay taxes too. And we deserve, and my father told me, a closed mouth don't get fed. And so we ask, where's the investment for us in our neighborhood? And so that is a project that came out of the Eastside Grassroots Coalition. Again, a neighborhood revitalization group that has new American members, have people of color, have young people, different than any of the other neighborhood organizations, but our neighborhoods are different. But because we are different, it doesn't mean we don't deserve an opportunity to thrive. When you look at what we can do for our own self, like I said, more community gardens than any other neighborhood in the city, in our neighborhood. At my agency, where the NAACP and the Eastside Grassroots Coalition are headquartered, we had a vision for young people in our neighborhood to work. We believe all kids aren't bad. So what do? And to prove that, you can talk about it or you can do something about it. And today, we've employed 135 youth in our community this summer to date. 135. And some of the organizations that are a part of that serve new Americans, that are part of our vision for Buffalo Road, are here this evening. And that we, through the ARP allocation from the Erie School District, we received funding for the Martin Luther King Center, the Booker T. Washington Center, and the Quality of Life Learning Center. I received almost $800,000 to run after-school programs at that in 5 locations. I do it at Elevate program at the Islamic Association of Erie on Holland Street. I do it at the Islamic Cultural Center on Parade Street. I do it at the Harvest Church next to Erie High School. And we do it at the Nepali Church on McClellan Avenue, as well as our center. And so if we're running after school programs to improve the performance of these students, their behavior and their productivity, then it doesn't stop when school is out. And that so we we rolled our programs over through the summer, as well as put an employment component with it. And through the assistance of the school and the city, we are able to employ those 135 students to date. And we are going to do an orientation with 21 more on Monday evening. Now, this is something other neighborhoods can replicate. If you look at the investment of ARP funds, who can deny that youth are as impacted by it as anyone? When we look at the investment we put into small businesses, when we look at the investment we put into roads or police or the redevelopment authority, can we say we've made a fair investment in our youth? I don't think so. I challenge the community to do more. They're not just our future, they're our right now. This is right now money. These are right now challenges that we face. We need right now plans to go along with the plans that create facilities and programs like this. Now, back to the Buffalo Road vision. Burton School and Roger Young Park are the 2 central entities along Buffalo Road that could have a significant impact on Buffalo Road. I learned in my research, Buffalo Road has been like a gateway. And those that travel on the east side know it's a way to go to New York. For those on the west side may not know that, but those on the east side, before 90 went Buffalo Road. The mayor of Wesleyville recognizes that and has reached out to us to formulate a partnership. They recognize the economic impact that we on the east side of Erie have in Wesleyville, in Harbor Creek, in the economic viability of their communities. But we can't get the major industries in our community, some of them receiving tax credits and tax breaks or having government contracts. If they could do like Erie Insurance does, like UPMC Hammett does, like Gannon University does, downtown, then I wouldn't be, as some people say, Gary Horton, every time I see you on TV, you have your hand out begging for money. And I'm not begging for anything. I have an expectation as a taxpayer and a resident of this community. I have an expectation if I buy my insurance here, if I invest in this and that we're going to be as fair as possible. All I've learned that a rising tide don't lift all boats. I keep hearing that. I don't see it. And so for Buffalo Road to vision, to come into reality and not just be a dream, Burton School is central to that. Now, a lot of people say, I want Burton School, and that there are people who want you to give it to them, and that they will do this program or that program, and that there are people with money who could go into Burton School and make a difference, but they haven't. There are people with no money that, like me, will say, hey, I'll do this with it if you give it to me. And that I've come to the conclusion, or we've come to the conclusion at Eastside Grassroots, that Burton School costs too much money to renovate. When we look at what the school district says has to be done there, we understand why they closed it in 2012. We don't like it that the only activity in the educational entity in our community do police dog training and other kinds of police training in the building. When you go inside the building, it's all kinds of crap in the building. Bird, rodents, needs a new roof. You got to completely redo the building. Some people say, oh, it has a historical connection and that. Well, where are those people at today who think it's all history to who? Certainly not to the people in the neighborhood. The reality of the people in the neighborhood is one of trauma. Burton School is central to addressing that trauma. We believe it ought to be torn down, not renovated, but rebuilt on that property. A new idea, still connected to education, more receptive to what the neighborhood is today. A neighborhood of new Americans, people from all over the world. A culturally responsive approach. To have classes like they have here. To have the community college in there. To have a relationship, a partnership with the Jefferson. To bring speakers to talk about the issues in Sudan, or Somalia, or Eritrea, or Tanzania, or South Africa, or Ukraine, or Vietnam. The populations of the people that we serve. And that there is a use in our neighborhood, a real one, today, to bring health care to them in our neighborhood today for Burton School. And it's not in the current building that everyone is not like Daria Devlin, that have the commitment and the fortitude to manage. Okay, it costs 3 times more than I thought it was going to cost to renovate this building. She didn't quit. She didn't give up. But she didn't do it by herself either. But she stuck to it. Burton School may not have that kind of time for right now needs in our neighborhood. We need to revitalize Buffalo Road today. Today. That's the opportunity. That's what the people in the Buffalo Road, Eastside Grassroots Strategy Coalition area deserve. Not to wait 3 or 4 or 5 more years. Hey, we put a strategic plan together in 2018. We replicated what East and West Bayfront did. But when the powers that be put this new plan out, this playbook, they don't include our strategic plan in it. Why? East Bayfront, West Bayfront strategic plan is in it. Why isn't our strategic plan in it? And that you can't use us to get public funding. No one fought any harder than the people who I look at in this room to change the administration of this country, to save our democracy. There's no reason why the infrastructure money and the ARP money should just meet the needs of the status quo. The people who have the money. There's no reason that that should happen like that. And now they want us to get up in November and go do it again to maintain the status quo. That's a dream. That ain't a vision. We need action. We need to be included. If a playbook is truly meant to be inclusive, then it's got to include everybody fairly. We are listed as one of the 35 projects in there, Burton School and Savakio Park. But you can't do it. You can't do it without resources. We thank the people who support us and have given us the ability to keep hope alive and have supported the many efforts that we make. Whether it's providing a job for kids or providing language and skills for new Americans, or whether it's helping people become homeowners, and that we have a program that if you live in public housing, we got them to help save your, if you get in that program, my friend Dan used to run it, Self-Sufficiency Program, you stay in it, when your rent goes up, that money is put in escrow. And you save enough of it, you can buy a house. And we see people who look like us do it, utilize it. Come on out of there. It's their money. After 3 or 4 or 5 years, they can save $35,000 and go have a nice down payment on a house. Why can't we have those kind of programs in the mainstream? How can you save or invest $15 million and redevelopment money to revitalize the community and don't target people who need it the most? If you just say, okay, anybody can come buy a home, you don't really care about the fact that only 3% of blacks own a home in our community today. If you want to increase that, then you got to say with the housing money, not just home, hey, buy a house with the money. No, some of this money for black home ownership. There's nothing illegal or wrong in doing that. You have to be intentional. That program, that self-sufficiency program, is an intentional program. We need more of that. In our community, the powers that be seem to not want to focus that way. And that they want to, if you look at the processes that they use to prioritize projects and where they want to invest their money, the people who don't have are at a handicap for competing with them around that. We need the decision makers, to be more intentional. That's what we're trying to do. Our vision for Burton School is to tear it down and build a new educational institution there that brings life to the community, like the life we want to bring at Savakio Park, and utilizing people to grow their own food and make their own way in life. That's a lot different than what I hear in some of the other neighborhoods. And that's not to say that theirs is wrong. It's only saying we found another way to go to the Mill Creek Mall. We just going our way. We run into a bump, we done learned we had to change. and go a different way. But we know how to get to the Mill Creek Mall. There are a ton of ways to get there. Which way is the wrong way? The mall is not mad at anybody who get there. They don't care which way you came. If you come with money. So it's the same way with ideas. This neighborhood got an idea for this, and that one got an idea for that. As Rodney King said, why can't we all get along? But when you put all of it over a long period of time in one area or two areas, it seems unfair to the other people who grow up in those other areas that they don't receive the same kind of attention and investment. So we at the Eastside Grassroots and the coalition are trying to have a voice in our community at the table with the decision makers. And whether they include us in their written plans or not, we keep meeting and we keep working and we keep trying, because God gave us a vision of Buffalo Road not being the second poorest neighborhood in the city. And we believe through our efforts and the people who live there, we are making a difference, and we will continue to do that. Now, I've talked a little longer than I wanted to, but I think I've said primarily what I wanted to get out, and I'd like to entertain any questions that you may have, whether it's on what I've said, or NAACP, or the city, or national or local other issues in that. I don't often see this population or this group at a forum or a function where you can ask questions of a person like me. And I consider it a privilege to have the opportunity to entertain some of your questions. One of my friends, he promised me he had some hard questions for me. He promised me that. And I take him at his word, because he helped me bring STEM to our kids. STEM. We've made electric or solar cars, airplanes. We've done coding. I mean, the guy, he didn't have to do it. You know, I call him a professor. You know, he worked at one of them rich schools and that. But he comes over in our neighborhood and has given to our kids STEM ability. So when he tells me he's gonna ask me some hard questions, I tend to believe him in that. So don't pass the mic to that guy. Yes.
Okay, so Laura's going around. She's passing out note cards and pencils for any questions that you might have for Gary. So we're gonna just do a little back and forth real quick while people are thinking of their questions. You can also give Laura your questions if you already have them. Okay, so how does the revitalization of Buffalo Road fit into the current playbook? The Erie Inclusive Growth Playbook.
Okay, I did hit a little bit on that. There are maybe 2 pages or 3 pages in there that include Slovakia Park as well as Burton School. But as I mentioned, there's a line of people that want Burton School, and they don't all have a plan for renovating it or the dollars to renovate it. But they all recognize the strategicness of it. The residents certainly do, as an asset in the community. You recognize when the bank leaves your neighborhood. You recognize when the school closed and it leaves. And so we are looking at who's left and who's still there. And disinvestment is a real thing, and redlining has been a real thing in our neighborhood. And so that thinking and those policies, I feel, bleed over into the planning of documents or plans like a Playbook or a Buki plan. So we're in it with no money. Sounds like somebody want to use us again for window dressing and or get the resources to come into the community that primarily helps the status quo. We can't afford status quo.
So how do we pull away from that status quo? Because I know people have had plenty of plans for the city of Erie that may or may not have worked, but how do we avoid making the same mistakes that past initiatives have made?
Well, I like Paul Revere. Paul Revere is the only messenger I ever studied that didn't get shot. He was celebrated. For that answer, you need some Paul Reveres. Because usually, when you don't conform, or you're not singing the same tune, or you challenge the status quo, you get shot, you get picked up, you get marginalized, you get bullied. You might even lose a couple dollars. You'll lose friends. We need more boldness from organizations like the Jefferson, who invest in thought, to provide platforms like this to hear alternative viewpoints from people like myself that may not be in the mainstream of the status quo. So you've done that this evening to me by providing me an opportunity to come here and say something. And again, I thank you. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you being here and speaking to us. How do you make inclusion and belonging more intentional? Can you go into that a little bit more in detail?
Well, another thing my dad always said to us, he who has the gold sets the rules. And when you have $400 million worth of assets, as the Erie Community Foundation has, if you have $9 or $10 million worth of assets, like the Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority has, if you have $15 million of assets, like the Greater Erie Economic Development Corporation has, if you have $3.5 million of assets, like the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee has, I think you're in a position to leverage opportunity for the less fortunate, for the marginalized. You can afford to be intentional. And I just think those institutions have to step up to that thinking, that if we don't do it, who's going to do it? If they have it and they don't use it in that manner, it's not going to get done.
So you spoke a bit about neighborhood trauma. How can we best address neighborhood trauma?
That's one of them Mill Creek Mall kind of paths to an answer. And not being a mental health specialist or having any background in that, we see how mental health has permeated throughout our society across the world. That's one of the $1 million questions. However, I believe in our neighborhood, we've had enough trauma. Enough. We've had enough trauma. We need a vision. We need to build or rebuild something. And it's got to be something that doesn't benefit us old folk, but something that benefits the young, the youth. And we have an opportunity to do that in our neighborhood, to give the youth hope, to give them a vision. In the schoolhouse that's been closed for 10 years. That's how I think we can deal with the trauma that our neighborhood has experienced. And I think if our elected officials or our decision makers would help us be able to get past the locked fence of industry, beyond the gate. I mean, just look at, we have a marijuana plant in our neighborhood. How many people from the neighborhood work in it? We have a major recycling plant in our neighborhood. We have abandoned environmental sites. We got WabTech, Accurate, Curtsy. I mean, I could go on and on. We need someone or someones to help them understand that there's another way to do what they're doing, not ignoring us. And don't they read the paper and see what Erie Insurance is doing? Or what Gannon is doing, or UPMC is doing? Because they could do the same thing in our neighborhood. Then we wouldn't have unreasonable expectations of those organizations I just mentioned. They can only do so much. Maybe they can help us though, knock on the door of those that are in our neighborhood and challenge them to join, challenge those businesses to join them in reinvestment or revitalization of urban Erie.
So these next couple questions, and I might just put these two together, are about Burton School. If Burton School is torn down, will the materials be recycled? And what would be the cost what would be the cost to demolish Burton School?
Well, let me say something about the question you didn't ask first. The cost of Burton School just sitting there is not sustainable. The impact, the negative impact it has on the population, the further deterioration in the value. That cost for demolishing it will go down if we let it keep falling down. We see the cost